What's up, guys? This is Jesse DeRozier with Hydrilla Gorilla Guide Service here on Lake Guntersville. Today's date is May 23rd, 2025, and this is What's on the Deck. So this week we've continued to see the bluegill beds develop really well. There's a good continual bite to be had there. There's several patterns that are working really well right now. The shad spawn has seemed to have ended. However, I have found big groups of shad still up on the surface, flicking around during the day, and if you run into that situation, there can definitely be some schooling activity that goes on around that if you run into it. So I'll kind of go over some of that we ran into and what we use there. The third situation that we ran into or fished this week is going to be that of shallow grass flats, as these fish are kind of migrating their way back out to the main lake, as well as actual ledge fishing for those that have already made it out there. So we did a little bit of everything this week, and I'll go through all of those baits right now. First was going to be that of the bluegill beds. So if you've got flat, calm conditions or really windy conditions and you're trying to get out of the wind, that can be a good option to go tuck up into a pocket and go fish some bluegill beds. In that situation, again, same as last week, is going to be that of the wacky worm. The wacky worm continues to put fish in a boat. It always will on a grass lake, and that green pumpkin with the chartreuse tip is definitely a good color to be throwing around the bluegill beds. The next bait I went ahead and added back to the arsenal this week is going to be that of the Nico rig. The Nico rig basically got a weight in the head of the bait. You've got the band on it just like you do the wacky worm, and then your exposed hook. That bait with the little bit of a guard on it can be fished around the grass very efficiently without getting fouled up and causing you too much problems. If you're looking for an even cleaner hook, I would recommend I think it's the Berkeley Fusion 19. It's got a little keeper on it. Let's see if I can show it a little bit better. It goes underneath. That one's gotten all bent up, but basically like that. Goes underneath the hook, keeps the grass off your hook, and you can use that hook as well for the Eco rig. The third bait that we used around the bluegill beds this week was that of the shaky head. This one I tend to use on the bluegill beds that are larger and a little bit cleaner, that have less grass around them. I also been using this out on the ledges or on any of those shell bars, kind of in that mid water column as well. So that one, as well as the Nico rig, are very versatile right now and being able to be used in multiple locations. So those are definite options that you'll want to have prepped and ready to go. So as I had mentioned, the shad situation. So we ran into yesterday huge schools of shad up on the surface, just flicking and going crazy. Almost looked like shad spawn, but they weren't actually spawning. They were just out there playing around. Not everywhere had bass on it, but if you paid attention, you would start to see in certain locations there would be some schooling activity. So if you see that, what you want to end up doing is picking up a couple of these baits and putting them to work is going to be that of a lipless. We can make really long casts with that. We can make multiple casts very quickly and cover a lot of ground. So you won't get in there and spook the shad and then spook the fish. If for some reason the water is too shallow for that and you can't throw a lipless, you can always resort to throwing your soft plastics in there. We did that because one of the areas that we were in was probably 1.5 feet deep. So we couldn't throw the lipless there. So we threw the soft plastics. We caught several fish on that, as well as, because it was shallow, picking up the spook. We threw that in there. We ended up having 3 blow-ups in about 20 minutes throwing that. And we caught one of the fish, missed the other 2. One of them actually knocked the bait about 2 foot out of the water, which was pretty cool to see that explosive hit on it. But unfortunately, that fish didn't hook up. However, it is definitely a bait to have ready to go if you run into that situation. So another option in that circumstance is going to be a swim jig. Swim jig you can run up in those shallow water. You can run it in that thicker grass. It's just a really good option in that situation. The next is going to be that of the producer swim baits. And the shad that we were seeing were actually about 5 inches long. They were full grown, full size shad. And this bait actually is a really good imitator of that. It's got the flash coming off of it from the blade. And this is the 5-inch Swiminator from Producer Swim Baits on a 6/0 owner flashy swimmer hook with, it's a 3/8 ounce weight. Again, even in the shallows or in that thick grass, that bait's going to fish very clean, which is going to allow for you to get those bites, because if you're throwing in there and constantly snagging grass, you've got grass trailing on your bait, you're not going to get those bites. In the situations where the grass is a little bit cleaner and you can get away with it, chatterbait's going to be a great option. But even still, that third situation that I was talking about, those grass flats out on the main lake, or making their way back out from toward the main lake, chatterbait is definitely a bait that 365 days a year you need to have this on the deck if you're fishing Lake Guntersville. That bait will catch them absolutely every trip that you're out, and needs to be on the deck every day. The 1/2 ounce is what I usually do most of my damage with. I'm going to throw that in 4 to 6 foot of water primarily, and then if I'm going to need one that I can work out deeper, say I'm fishing 6 to 10 foot of water, which is really developed right now, those outside grass lines of eelgrass or those sparse clumps of hydrilla, milfoil, coontail that are growing out there in that deeper water, have fish setting on them, and throwing a 3/4 ounce out there is going to get you those bites that you can't reach with that 1/2 ounce, or you'd have to slow down so much it'd just be almost painstaking to try to work it down that deep. So it's easier just to bump up in size. So last but not least, on the big flats is going to be your wake baits. These baits right now are producing some really big fish. It is time consuming to get out there and figure this bite out, but I promise you, if you put in the work, you will be very pleased with what you get on these baits. The quality of the bite far surpasses probably anything else that you're going to catch fish on. And not to say that you won't catch a small 2-pounder on that, but you're more than likely, your average is going to be 4 pounds and above on these. So if you're a tournament guy and you're willing to throw a bigger bait or a heavier bait, you definitely want to have this in your arsenal. So go to bullshad.com and get yours put in the order, because they're in high demand right now, and he does make those by hand, so it'll probably have to be made and then shipped to you. So go ahead and get your order in. The last technique or area of the lake that we focused on this week is going to be that of ledge fishing. And ledge fishing is all about the position of the fish. Are they suspended or are they on the bottom? So you're going to have to figure that out. If you don't have live sonar, you're going to have to idle the fish, and you're going to have to use your side imaging to find your groups, turn around, go back over them, and hit them with your down imaging, your 2D. Once you figure that out, are they suspended or are they down on the bottom, then you can go with your mode of attack and fish the baits accordingly. But unless you know that, it's going to take you a little while of fishing them and guessing as to whether or not they're in the right position for the baits that you're throwing. So figuring that out first would be the first key thing to do. If they are suspended, and say you're a finesse fisherman, a jig head minnow, if you've got live scope or any type of live sonar, it's probably going to be a really good option to go with. If you don't, All right, so say you're one of the old school guys that don't have live sonar and you want to have a bait that's similar in presentation. The Jerky J, the Castaic Jerky J. They have a 5-inch version and a 7-inch version. The Scrounger style head gives you that same wobbling action. And Jason Lambert put this bait on the map years ago, fishing ledges on the TVA reservoirs. So this bait absolutely works. It allows for you to throw a heavy hook, allows for you to throw it on 17, 20-pound test, and you can throw it out there. You're going to let it go all the way to the bottom, and you're going to slow reel it back, say quarter of your return to the boat. Pause, let it go back to the bottom, do it again for another quarter of your retrieve. Again, do that basically 4 times, working this back to the boat. Basically what you're trying to do is, as you're reeling, it's going to slowly climb up off the bottom, and you're wanting that bait to stay in that kind of 4 to 6 foot zone up off the bottom, or in that range of what you saw those fish when you idled them, how far they were up off the bottom. If they're closer to the bottom, then you're going to have to either crawl it really, really, really slow or pause more often to keep that bait in that strike zone. The next bait that I would highly recommend keeping on your deck if you are ledge fishing is going to be a flutter spoon. Flutter spoons are really, really good at drawing reaction strikes. It gets a competitive spirit going between the fish. You can get the whole school very, very active very quickly, and it will definitely pull the fish towards you, so be conscious of that. You may actually have to kind of back away from the school at a certain point if they continue to pull towards you. Again, you can go really big. Go with as big of a flutter spoon as you can kind of handle. I know everybody's different in what they can do, so if it's only a 3-inch that you can use, then use a 3-inch. You'll still catch fish on it. If you can use a 4 or a 5 or even an 8-inch, I would highly recommend going with the bigger spoon if you can. The bigger spoon will definitely draw the bigger bites, and it also has that pulling power to really get the school engaged. The third bait that you definitely need to have on your deck on a TVA reservoir ledge fishing is going to be a hair jig. The hair jig is one of those techniques that, again, that you're going to basically work it up to the level of the fish and then pause it. So you're going to throw it out there, let it go all the way to the bottom. When it gets on the bottom, you're going to reel very quickly 4 to 6 times, just depending on how high those fish are. Each reel turn, basically, you're going to jump that bait about a foot. So if they're 4 foot off the bottom, I'd say 4 reel turns. If they're 6 foot up, I'd go 6 reel turns. Let that bait pause, fall, and pendulum back down to the bottom. And as it pendulums is when you're going to get your bite. They will very, very aggressively hit it, but they're also going to spit it very quickly. So once you see your line jump or you feel that tick in your line, you need to react very quickly. You need to reel very quickly, take up the slack, and then swing very quickly. If you miss the fish, don't panic. A lot of times you'll get 2, 3, 4 bites before you hook up with one. So if that happens, reel again 2, 3 turns, pause it, and either the same fish or another fish in that school will swim up and take a swat at it as well. Again, reel quickly, swing. Hopefully you hook that fish. If you don't, repeat again. Sometimes, like I said, it'll be 3, 4, 5 times that you get hit on a single cast before you eventually hook up. So that's basically it for my suspended fish. For the ones that are down on the bottom, you want to basically get that bait right in their face. The first bait of choice is going to be a crankbait, and that is basically getting it down and rutting it into the bottom. For that 8 to 12 foot zone, I've been using the DT10. If I'm getting out deeper than that and I'm running in that 12 to 18 foot zone, I'm picking up a 6XD. If you find them out even deeper than that, you're going to have to go to either an 8 or a 10XD or another version of a crankbait that, you know, is going to get down that deep. So that would be my first choice as far as the fish that are down on the bottom is going to be cranking. Other than that, it's going to be basically kind of crawling the baits along the bottom, keeping it right in the fish's face. For that, my first choice is going to be that Little Reaction Innovations. That's a little dipper on that Dirty Jigs 3/8 ounce guppy head underspin. And one thing that I would highly recommend, guys, is these are salt impregnated. They tear up very, very easily, and you'll go through a lot of baits. You definitely want to make sure that you are taking a little bit of the Avid Anglers fishing glue and gluing that to the head. So usually what I do is I snip the tip of it so I get a nice flush spot there. Make sure that I get a good adhesion on that glue, and that bait I can catch anywhere from 8 to 15 fish on that. A lot of times it'll tear a trough right here where the hook is. You can have the option of taking the glue. You can glue it back together or not even worry about it, because as it gets down on the bottom, that bait's going to swing right back up. That hook's going to go right back into the bait. As long as it's glued, it doesn't matter. So you can catch a lot more fish on it if you take the time to glue it. Again, I would highly recommend taking the time, add a little bit of Thump Gel to your bait, get that scent on there, because as these fish start to track in behind it, you want them catching the smell off of that the lure, making them want to actually commit to that bait. The next bait that I'm going to be crawling on the bottom is going to be a wobblehead. I prefer something that's got some action to it. I like the Rage Craw. I like the Menace Grub. Those are probably two of my favorites that I'm going to, pair with the wobblehead. You can choose any type of a cross style bait though. I mean, you could go with a Missile D-Bomb, you could go with the Reaction Beaver or a Kinky Beaver, anything like that would work great. Again, with that one, I'm going to throw it out, let it hit bottom, and I'm just going to crawl it across the bottom. Just a very slow, steady reel. I'm not pausing it, I'm not hopping it, I'm not doing anything with it, just a slow, steady reel. Now, the next bait, very similar in profile, is going to be an actual football head jig. I'm going to utilize a 1/2 ounce, a 3/4, and a 1 ounce. And the choice that I use to make that is going to be how much current I have and how deep the water is. The faster the current or the deeper the water, the heavier the jig. With that, you can slow crawl it just like you could the wobblehead. You just slow reel it back. You can, bump it and pop it along the bottom, putting a little bit of skipping action into it. Or you can do something that we used to do years ago, and now it's kind of gotten away from mainstream, and that is that of stroking the jig. And when I say that, it's basically like working it just like the flutter spoon. You're going to take it, throw it out there, get it to the bottom, and you're going to pop the rod. You want to make that jig literally jump 4 or 5 foot up off the bottom of the lake, and as it falls is when you're going to get that strike. It's just something that they have not seen in a long time. It's basically like a new technique because nobody's doing it anymore. And it can get some of those bigger fish that are finicky and don't want to commit to a bait. It can get those strikes. The last technique is going to be that of a big 10, 12, or even 15-inch ribbon tail worm. You definitely want to keep that on your deck this time of year. We've got a lot of lamprey eels in our lake, and that is a very, very good imitator of a lamprey eel. When these fish come out from the spawn, they're looking to fatten up, and so they like big baits. That's the reason why big flutter spoons, big crankbaits, big worms, big jigs. They are looking to eat something of size. Today, one of my clients caught a fish. We looked inside its mouth and seen antennas sticking out. And right away I was like, that's a crawfish. Let's see how big he is. So I grabbed my pliers, reached down there, actually pulled it out. It was a 6-inch long crawfish, still alive. And he's sitting there eating another bait. So they're hungry and they're eating sizable meals right now. So don't shy away from the bigger baits. Definitely right now, I would definitely lean more toward throwing the larger baits. As we get into the hotter part of summer and it starts getting to where they've seen a lot of these baits, then you're going to kind of taper back the other direction. But right now, size is a good thing. That's basically it, guys. I hope this information helps you out this week out on the water. Hope to see you guys out there. And until next week, tight lines.